You are now listening to the Just Corrections podcast with your host, William Young.
Can we just get this show on the road?
I wonder if you've ever hesitated before shaking someone's hand, if you've ever looked at them or ever sized them up, calculate the risk, wonder what their intentions are, or maybe you even wonder why you're thinking the way that you are. And if you work in corrections, you probably have, because a handshake isn't just a handshake, right? It's a decision, a tactical move, a test of trust or control. And whether you realize it or not, the way you shake hands, the way you stand, the way you interact with people outside of work, outside of uniform, is still shaped by what you've been trained to do on the inside. So let's talk about that. Greetings, my fearless frontliners, my fellow guardians of the galleries. I'm William Young, and well, this is my channel. And if you're new here, then welcome. If you're a current, aspiring, retired, or soon to be retiring correctional professional, and you're looking for correctional content that's informative and engaging, that is intended to elevate and educate the profession, then you're in the right place. If you're looking for war stories from somebody who you spent a couple of weeks inside of their facility, this is not going to be that. And if you're a returning viewer, a faithful listener, thank you, thank you, thank you. What is wrong with you? There's something absolutely, no, I'm kidding. Thank you for spending your precious time with me, for engaging, leaving the comments, sending the emails. I love it. I love you guys. All right. This idea, this topic that we're going to talk about today was gifted to me by a good friend, a confidant, a fellow correctional officer. We talk on the phone almost daily, bouncing ideas off of each other. If you are familiar with the show, if you watch some other podcasts, I'm talking about Rolland. Me and him solve the world's problems. And the other day he threw a word out, just one word, and it got us talking about one of the many side effects that we experience from working in corrections. And that word was barriers. And I asked him to explain, to tell me what he meant by barriers. And his response that he said was so simple. What he said was, even something as small as a handshake. And he asked me, he said, when you meet someone, do you automatically extend your hand, or do you wait for them to extend theirs to shake it? And what goes through your mind before that handshake? Does it change depending on who initiates it? And I thought, holy crap, this is such a great topic. But before I explain, before I give you my answer, before I break all of this down, I want to take a moment to thank the members of the JCP, the Just Corrections Patreon community. Without you, without your support, I couldn't create the content that you're consuming right now. So I truly appreciate you. Thank you for everything you do. And if you're watching or listening and you want to contribute, consider becoming a member. There are different tiers, or if you'd rather support the channel in another way, then click the thanks button on the screen if you're watching on YouTube and make a small donation. It really helps keep things moving, keep things going. And it sounds ridiculous to even have this conversation, but this is what I do, right? Explore how corrections impacts every single part of our lives, down to something as small as a handshake. And I've written about this. I've talked about this, right? We don't like crowded places. We avoid Walmart on the weekends. We don't enjoy being around large groups of people or loud environments. And on a micro level, even the way that we greet people changes because of our conditioning, because of our experiences in corrections. So he threw the question back at me. He says, when you meet someone, do you automatically extend your hand for a handshake? And the answer is, it depends. Outside of work, out of uniform, it's a different story. But inside of the housing unit, do I shake hands with the inmates? Absolutely not. Maybe on a rare occasion, I'll give a fist bump, right? In my entire career, I could probably count on one hand the number of inmates that I've shaken hands with. And it's usually somebody I've known for decades, on their way out after a long stint, over at community corrections. But on the inside, right, that's the easy answer. Outside, out of uniform, that's where the real question begins. So do I extend my hand to shake hands? And my initial response, when I thought about it, was, it depends. And that's where my mind starts breaking it down, right? What's my objective? What do I want to achieve with this interaction? What's my relationship with the individual? Maybe everyone thinks about these things, or maybe it's just those of us who have spent time inside in corrections. But we're going to crawl down this rabbit hole, kayak down this tributary, and see where it leads. Because if you're like me, if you've worked in this field long enough, your mind likely travels a similar path. And maybe, just maybe, by understanding how our brains process these interactions, by realizing we're not alone in this, we can start to mitigate some of the changes that corrections imprints on us over time. So I have this gentleman in front of me, right? Do I extend my hand? It depends. Am I in a leadership role? Am I presenting? If I'm out and about and I'm doing one of my events, I shake a lot of hands. I'm working. I'm trying to build connections, to network. I'm trying to ease people's minds. But in that setting, I'm in a safe space, right? I'm surrounded by correctional professionals, by law enforcement professionals, by like-minded individuals who operate by the same set of rules that I do. My usual concerns, the ones that run through my mind in other environments, don't come into play when I'm standing in that kind of group. And the same thing applies when I'm at church, and I've talked about that before. So yes, when I'm in a setting where I want to connect with someone, where I want to bring them in and make them feel welcome, I'll extend my hand. I'll shake their hand, and sometimes I don't just shake their hand. I'll tap their arm. And I realize not everyone likes that. I've had people like pull away or seem uncomfortable, and I get it. I apologize when that happens, but I do it for a reason. Because here's the other thing. Sometimes I shake hands to connect, to make someone feel welcome. Other times I shake hands for a completely different reason. To get into someone's space, to keep them off balance, to make them feel uncomfortable. And it depends on the situation, on who's standing in front of me, on the arena that we're in. So what's my objective? Is it to establish a connection or to establish dominance? And that's a whole nother discussion, right? Why do I feel the need to establish dominance? Because I come from an environment full of alphas, right? Full of intimidation, a place where weakness gets exposed, gets exploited, where you have to establish yourself. You have to make it clear that you are in control. And this isn't about being like a macho man or a macho woman, right? It's about survival. It's about setting the tone. It's about making it clear that I'm not the one. It's about saying, look, I don't know what you're here for. I don't know if today is the day that you decide to start some shit, but if it is, I'm letting you know right now, it's not me. You're not doing this today. And that's why I shake hands the way that I do. That's why sometimes I pull people in when I shake their hand. I want them to know that I'm not afraid to get close. I want them to know that I see them, that I'm watching them. And that kind of sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but that's what I've been trained to do. That's my TCP, my trained correctional perspective. It's telling me that this person might be a threat. It's running through all the possible scenarios, forecasting the problems that could arise just from this person being in my space. And for those of you who haven't read my book, Train to Change, or aren't familiar with the TCP, it refers to the specific mindset and worldview that correctional officers develop as a result of their training and experiences within the correctional environment. This perspective, right, is characterized by heightened vigilance, mistrust, a tendency to perceive others both inside and outside of the correctional environment as potential threats. Our TCP shapes how correctional officers interact with people and situations, often leading to protective behaviors that extend beyond the workplace and into their personal lives. But I was told to leave work at work and home at home. Stop it, don't do it. While our TCP is essential for safety and survival inside of the correctional environment, it can also have unintended consequences, influencing our relationships, decision-making, and overall mental well-being. Here's the thing, guys. You can't just turn that off. You can't just flip a switch and stop seeing the world the way you do. It doesn't work like that. It's more like a crossfader on a mixing board or a dimmer switch, a slow transition that never fully reaches zero. Because when you suppress emotions, when you ignore the way that you feel, those emotions don't disappear. They come back. They pop up at moments like this. So yes, I shake hands. I extend my arm. I tap the arm. I bring him in. Welcome, brother. Thanks for coming. Or I see you. I'm on to you. Don't fucking do it tonight. But sometimes I don't extend my hands. Sometimes I don't want to shake hands. Maybe I'm emotionally drained. Maybe I'm off my game. Or maybe I sense a real threat. Maybe something in my gut tells me don't do it. And I absolutely trust that instinct. So what about when someone extends their hands to me? It says, well, okay, so what if someone extends their hand to you? Do you shake it? Well, my answer is kind of still the same. It It depends. And when I come back from this quick break where I'm going to shamelessly plug my book, we're going to dig into that. Do you guys ever feel like this job is changing you, like the weight of the walls are pressing in and you're not necessarily the same person who walked through those gates? Well, you're not imagining things. Corrections, the training, the trauma, the time that we spend inside rewires the way we think, react, and the way we see the world. And that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Train to Change: The Unfortunate and Unintentional Consequences of the Correctional Curriculum. It's a deep dive into how this career shapes us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and more important, how we take back control. So whether you're a rookie or a veteran, this book right here, this tool, will help you recognize the hidden impacts of the job and give you the tools to push back, stay sharp, and protect your well-being if you're in this profession or you know somebody who is. Grab this book, read this book, use this book as a tool to educate and elevate yourself and the profession. Get your copy of Train to Change today, available on Amazon. I'll throw the link in the description. Start taking control of your story today. And hey, if you've already read it, leave me a review and let me know what you think. Let's start changing the conversation about mental health and corrections, normalizing the conversation in mental health and corrections together. So what about when somebody extends their hand to me? Do I shake it? Maybe. Inside the jail, it's simple. Inmates, no way. I'm not touching you. I know where your hand's been all day long. I've seen it. I don't know if you're going to try to pull me in, and I don't know if you have a toothbrush sharpened to a point up your sleeve and you're going to stab me. So I diffuse, right? Maybe I crack a joke. Maybe I just fist bump. Maybe I just nod and move on. But outside, and that's what I focus on, and that's what we're talking about here, it gets a little more complicated than that. So when I meet somebody for the first time and they extend their hand to me, I have a split second to decide, right? I'm not standing there like I'm an idiot. My brain processes, it moves pretty quickly. Is this person a threat? Do I want to touch them? What's their motive? And then I remind myself, you're not at work. This is not an inmate. Bill, you need to chill out. And yes, there are settings when I don't want to touch someone where I have to be on guard, but this isn't one of them. So I override my instincts and I shake the hand. And while I do that, I can hear my crazy uncle in the back of my head. I think we all have that one uncle, right? The one who squeezes the hell out of your hand when they shake it. And when I was kids, he was the one who taught me that a handshake matters. How you shake somebody's hands matters. And my uncle used to tell me, he says, when you shake a man's hand, you shake a man's hand. And I'm like 10 years old, so I'm like, yeah, okay, Unc. And I wonder, I don't know where he got that from, but it stuck with me, and that's my point. Check it out. The things that we do, the way we interact, the way we respond to something as simple as a handshake comes from the things that we've seen, the lessons that we've been taught, and from the experiences that we have. They come from our environment, from our relationships, and from our past. And when you work in corrections, those experiences change you. And that's what I talk about when I write about the metamorphosis, which is the profound and necessary transformation of an individual's mindset as a direct response to the correctional environment. It's the way that the job rewires your brain, how something as simple as a handshake can turn into a full-blown threat assessment without you even realizing it. And if we keep going down that rabbit hole, if we keep pulling on that thread, we get into even deeper territory, right? Like our physical safety, like reactionary gaps. How close do you stand to people when you talk to them? Is it even realistic for them to extend a hand, or are you automatically keeping a 6 foot or 10 foot plus the length of a weapon as a distance at all times? And I want you to pay attention to this week, not inside the facility, but outside of it. Look at how you interact with people. Look at your posture, your positioning. Are you warm, open, inviting? Do you shake hands? Do you hug? Or are you keeping your distance, staying guarded? And then ask yourself, why? Your correctional experience? Your trauma? Your time inside? Or is it something that your weird uncle said to you 40 years ago? Those are the barriers. Those are your barriers. And if you don't understand where those barriers come from, then you can't take them down. But once you do, once you identify them, once you recognize what is shaping your reactions, you can start to do the work. You can start to challenge those automatic responses. You can remind yourself, this isn't work. That's not an inmate. This person's not an inmate. I don't have to be the alpha. It's okay to let my guard down. And that's when the real change starts to happen. So pay attention this week. Look at how you move through the world. How do you talk? How do you stand? How do you react? And then start pulling on those threads. Start looking into the why, because once you understand the why, you can start making changes. You can start living a happier, more fulfilling life out of uniform. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today, for watching this episode of the podcast. New episodes are available daily, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Set a reminder on your phone, your Google Calendar, so you never miss an episode. And make sure you subscribe to the show, follow the show on YouTube or wherever you're listening or watching or whatever. You can follow us on Facebook, on X, Instagram, LinkedIn. Leave a comment, get involved, engage, share the show with your friends, your family, your fellow correctional professionals, anybody that you think may be interested. The Just Corrections podcast, Just Corrections YouTube channel. And if you're interested in supporting the show, please consider becoming a member of the Just Corrections Patreon community. There are a couple of different tiers, different options. So check that out. I'll have a link to that in the description below. And don't forget to check out the books available on Amazon, Train to Change and The Nothing That Never Happened. The links will also be in the description. And if you'd like to bring me out to speak or present at your event, send me an email at justcorrections.booking@gmail.com. All right, guys, that's all I got. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.